The last guy on there, if you couldn't tell, our special speaker, he's like really tall, and I'm like really short. It was awful. It was bad. So come on up, Gravy. Give Gravy a hand. She comes up here. The one thing that video didn't say, and I don't know how many parents will let their kids come back next year, but those lawnmower races and those BB gun shooting out there, they were all blindfolded. But everybody's fine. It's all good. It all went well. You know, it all sounded good, and I thought it went great. So are you ready?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Let me use this one or that one?
Oh, you can use that one. I don't care. Don't matter to me. They're all the same.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hold on. It's kind of hot in here, guys. Okay. Hold on, guys. Okay. So we each had a day. There was like 4 nights, but we each had a theme to our message. And it was either like cheer. We would, you know, put it like in like God's message, try to like reword it. And then there was weights. And then there was NASCAR. Yeah, that's what it was. All right. So very important question before we start. Since mine was about cheerleading, who here thinks cheer is a sport? All right, you're wrong. Okay. I think it's not a sport unless you get like a medal. Then come talk to me, all right? Okay, so there are 3 main roles of stunting. You have the bases, the flyers, and the spotters, okay? The bases are the foundation of the stunt. Without them, the flyer can't go up into the air. They have to have good technique, they have to be strong, and they have to know what to do when they fall. Just in case the flyer falls, they have to know how to catch them. Number 2, the flyers are the people who you see being lifted or thrown into the stunt. They also have a job to do. They need to have full body control, they have to be aware of their weight distribution, and they have to know a little bit more skill. Then you have the spotters. They're normally placed either in front of the stunt or behind. They're supposed to assist the stunt by making sure it's steady and balanced, and the spotters are also to help the flyer when she falls or dismounts incorrectly. Now, I was going to have Jeff, Dennis, and Matt come do the pyramid like you saw in the video, but I didn't think that would go well. So we're not going to do that.
Hey, I'll get on top.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You got to persuade Dennis.
We can do it right now if you want to. Don't challenge us.
Hey, if Dennis and Matt say it's okay.
I mean, if they chicken out, that's totally up to them. But hey. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yep, okay. So with that being said, without the bases, there's no stunt. And without the flyer, there also is no stunt. They each have a role to play and a job to do. The spotter isn't going to let their flyer do whatever they want because the flyer has to do her job just as much as the spotter or the base does. Or else the stunt's not going to end well. Now let's say that we are the ones being lifted in the air. We're the flyer. And let's say that God is the one that's holding us. So the bases, our firm foundation. We have the job to do as the flyer. In a spiritual way, our job is to trust in God. If the flyers didn't trust in their bases, they would be scared and won't want to do the stunt. So we need to be a good flyer and trust in our bases, which is God. We also have the job to be his hands and feet. In a stunt, we notice that the flyer's hands are free to do whatever she wants with them. And no, I'm not saying we need to do spirit fingers all day long. No, I'm saying that we need to do God's work to spread his word and to help others around us, and etc. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 11 says, "For no one can lay any other foundation than what has been laid down. The foundation is Jesus Christ." So we look for a firm foundation in all the wrong places. We all want the right things, and that's good, but we always look in the wrong way. We always look in the wrong direction. We look for in either alcohol, drugs, and even things that we may place higher than God, like money, social media, and even badminton or breakdancing. I don't know. Some people watch that in the Olympics. All right. Not calling anyone out like they did earlier. Anyway, so I was going to say sports, but it wasn't as funny. But on a serious note, we can't put sports and things that we like to do as our firm foundation because it will eventually go away. When we die, we aren't going to think about all the things we have or haven't done. You aren't going to immediately think about your bucket list and say, no, I really wanted to play chess. Like, I'm dead. Like, I can't play chess anymore. Like, please, if you have that on your bucket list, like, no. Like, just cross it off. Like, playing chess is fine. If you want to learn it, that's fine. But, like, a bucket list, all right. Okay. Anyways. So, but anyways, we continue to read verse 12 through 13. It says, if anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, or straw, each one's work will become obvious, for the day will disclose it because it will be revealed by fire. The fire will test the quality of each one's work. So whenever I'm thinking this, I'm thinking about the 3 little pigs and the big bad wolf. Okay, so I'm thinking of that. So we can't expect our possessions and people to be our rock and to hold us up in a stunt. We need only Jesus. Our friends will eventually leave. We can't rely on them. Our foundation is Jesus. He is the rock that we stand on. Jesus is the only sure foundation for salvation. All other foundations are like quicksand. And when we choose to make Jesus our foundation, our focus is on him. When we are able to put all of our weight on him because he is there to help us. We can rely on him. He is our base for the stunt, so we have to trust him. Now let's step back just a little bit because I think we overlook firm foundation. As we just look at it as, oh yeah, he's the rock on which I stand on, but it's a lot more than that. Our house is a firm foundation. Without a firm foundation, our house will collapse. At teen camp, we were told to build a bridge over our Bible using the supplies that were given us. And no matter how good it looked, it mattered if it could hold the heavy object, which was the water bottle. And it's like the 3 little pigs. One house was made out of straw, and the other 2 were made out of stick and brick. The straw and the stick house looked pretty, but it blew over once the wolf came. We can't make our life pretty and expect it to not blow over. If we have God as our foundation, then we have more knowledge and more faith in tough situations. We're trying to make our life pretty by putting things above God, but in reality, we really need to think and be like, if the wolf came right now, would I have good foundation for my house, for my life? So as a flyer, we need to trust in God and to rely on him because we can't rely on anyone else. God is trying to be the base in the stunt. So are you willing to let him be the base? Are you willing to trust in him? That's all I have.
All right, good job. Good job. Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't get up here and do that. I really don't. I don't know what the deal was.
Yeah.
I don't get it. All right. Next up, we have KG in the house. I told him he had...
Yeah, Jeff said I had like 12 to 15 minutes to do this, and I said, I will try my best to keep it under 15, but I cannot make any promises.
Something tells me he's probably going to go to seminary one of these days and going to be one of those.
Not planning on it, but it is a possibility down the road. Okay, so as Brianna introduced, there were 3 topics for the 3 nights. Mine was weights. So you need to have God spotting you when you're doing your weights. If you're doing a bench press like this, if I'm under there and I'm pushing the bar up over my chest, I need to have someone spotting me from behind to be able to catch the bar in case it slips out of my hand so I don't crack a rib or 2. God is our spotter. So if I'm down there, or I'll just use this because it's a lot easier and I'm less likely to break my arm or something. If I'm doing this, if it's a little heavier, it's not that heavy. If it's a little heavier, I would need someone to help me catch it so it doesn't fall and I hurt my leg or rip a tendon in my arm. But right now I can do this because it's easy. Eventually, it gets heavy enough where I need to have something to catch it in case I drop it so I don't break a toe or break the floor, because that would be expensive to replace this floor. So the same thing is true in our lives. We deal with things that are heavy in our soul, whether it be grieving a lost loved one or a pet, or dealing with financial problems, or just interpersonal relationships. Other people may not be able to see it, but God sees it. So while you may be struggling, like, you can get a whole bunch of weight on some of these bars, and I would struggle underneath that bar over there, not gonna lie. That would be hard to push up. These are a little bit easier because there's not as much weight. If you're underneath the heavy bar and you're struggling, people can see that and say, hey, he needs help, because that's physical. if you're struggling with something in your heart, whether, like I said, grieving a lost loved one, financial problems, problems with just other people, people don't see that as easily because you can hide that in your heart. You can put on a face, you can make it seem like you're doing okay, but on the inside, you're actually struggling a lot. But God will always see that. And God is the ultimate spotter because he will always see that. And if you ask him to, he will never fail to hold it for you. So, whenever you go to get a spotter, you don't just start bench pressing and hope someone shows up to spot you. You say, hey, can you spot me while I do a bench press or while I do a squat, while I do some curls? Whatever weight you're doing, whatever exercise you're doing, you have to go and ask first. You have to do the same thing with your personal problems. If I'm struggling with something, Matt may not see it, but if I say, hey, Matt, I'm struggling with this, can you help me out? We can sit and talk about it, and he can share my load, and he can make it easier on me, but I have to go to him first. Same thing with God. I don't remember the exact verse, and I wasn't going here earlier, but in Revelation, Jesus says, I stand at the door and knock. All you have to do is answer the door. All you have to do is ask for some help. He never fails. If I'm imagining this, if I'm bench pressing 750 pounds on this, which I don't think I'll ever do, and Jeff comes up and he says, I got this. No offense, Jeff, but I don't think you're going to hold 750 pounds over me and keep me from dying. Exactly. So Jeff may not be able to do that, but no matter how heavy your problem is, God can always lift it because God is all powerful. So the example that was used during teen camp was Job. And if you've read through Job or you know the story of Job, you know Job suffered a lot. He had a family, he had a bunch of land, a bunch of animals. He was rich, like filthy rich at that point. And then one day he lost it all. He lost all of his animals. He lost all of his kids. All what seemed to be random to him, and all at one time. And that's a lot to put on a person. So Job was clearly suffering a lot in his heart, and then he still didn't say bad things towards God. He still didn't curse God. So Satan put on more pressure. And he sent friends who seemed like they were going to be good at the beginning. They were helping him out. They were there for him. And then all of a sudden they said, yeah, this is your fault, dude. Why'd you have to mess up? This is you paying for a sin. When the Bible clearly states Job did not sin, Job's suffering was not a result of his sin. Job was not paying for his sin with that. So Job had friends who seemed to be spotters. They came over and they saw he was struggling, and they were helping him out at first, but then they said, dude, this is your own problem. You got this. And they started cursing him, telling him he needed to curse God. God will never say, hey, you did something wrong. You deserve this. God will always encourage you. He may say, hey, you did something wrong, but I love you. Let's try and do it different next time. And that's something else a spotter does whenever you're lifting weights. If I'm lifting this and it's too heavy for me and I'm struggling, but Jeff can see a little bit of movement, Jeff can encourage me and say, you got this, Kinnaman, let's go. And just all kinds of encouragement, and I can most likely get it up because encouragement will always make you feel better. So one example of encouragement is one of the most common phrases of encouragement that I have seen in any of the videos that I have watched for weightlifting is they say, you've got one more rep in you. You've got one more rep. One example of this is Private Doss in World War II. They made a movie about him called Hacksaw Ridge. I don't remember what year. Desmond Doss was a combat medic in World War II. You may have heard his story in the movie. His company had to charge inland, but they had to scale up a ridge and then charge in. They were met by heavy machine gun fire, and they couldn't push very far past the ridge because, well, they were getting mowed down. Most of his company was heavily wounded, and they couldn't make it back down the ridge to advance medical help. Even though Private Doss was severely injured, he fought to save every man that he could. However, he started off by praying to God, and he said, Lord, let me save one man. And that one man became one more. And he kept praying one more, and it eventually led to 75 men being saved. Private Doss reached out to God as his spotter and said, hey, I need help here, and you're the only one who can help me. Let me save one more person. And God did way more than just one more person. He did 75 one more peoples. I got to get a drink. Give me just a second. It's like trying to talk with a couple wads of cotton in your mouth. It just dries it out in half a second. So another example from this from movies, I know I quote a lot from movies because I watched a lot of movies because I went to a daycare, is from Facing the Giants. So it's a football movie, and they're doing exercises one day, and they pick the center for the O-line, and he has to basically do a bear crawl with someone on his back, blindfolded. And the coach says, if you can do that to the 50, we won't run today. Just give me all you got. Get to the 50. He put the blindfold on so he couldn't see how far he was going. So he started off, he gets to the 20, and he's realizing he's struggling a lot because the other guy is kind of heavy, and he's kind of heavy himself. And it's a lot to crawl all the way across the football field, or even to the 50-yard line like he thought he was going to go to. The coach was down there, though, and the coach said, keep going, 5 more yards, 5 more yards. And eventually, the football player, whose first name was Brock, got all the way to the other side. He went the full 100 yards, not just the 50 like he thought he could do. And he was ready to give up at the 40, but the coach kept pushing him and encouraging him, saying, you've got it in you, just keep going. And he made it all the way across, twice as far as he thought he was going to be able to. God is the same way with us. When we think it's time to give up, I can't do this anymore, all you have to do is open up your Bible and listen to God. The Bible is the direct words of God. So if you ever need some advice, go to the Bible because that's the wisest person you're ever going to find right there. So go to God and he will encourage you. Keep going. Don't give up. And you'll make it all the way across. And that's not exactly weights, but it's pretty close. So back to Job. Job was struggling a lot. Instead of having a 160-pound guy on his back and crawling to the 50-yard line, he had 400 pounds of stuff on his back and was crawling. Job had it really hard. But I don't remember where I was going with that. Sorry.
It just does it all the time.
I know. I just quit. Yeah. Buffering. So Job was in a lot of pain and suffering. And he had friends show up that he thought were going to encourage him. But then he found out that man isn't as good as God. And no matter how long you've lived, you will eventually figure that out if you haven't already. Because God will never fail you. He will never forsake you. He will always be there to encourage you. And that's it.
Good job. I think you kept it in there. Did all right. It technically was a weight because he was carrying a weight on his back the whole way. And yeah, he's carrying a weight on his back the whole way. Next up, we got Kung Fu.
How are all you beautiful people doing today?
Thank you. That made my day right there.
You're welcome, Jeff. All right, so my day that I got to choose was whose voice is in your head. How many have watched NASCAR in here or like to watch NASCAR? All right, so this is basically themed around NASCAR. We started out the day in here with a game. So someone sat on a rolly cart, like one of those things you do in PE. Probably everyone knows what I'm talking about. While someone else pushed them around this area. However, that person pushing them was blindfolded, so they didn't know where they were pushing them. The person on the cart had to give them precise directions on where to go. But then another catch, the opposing team was around them, yelling at them the whole time to go the opposite direction of what they were supposed to. If only you were here, you would have seen that it was absolute mass chaos. It was loud. The people were crashing into chairs and walls, and I mean, they eventually got back, but it was crazy. The point of me telling you this is you had to listen to your spotter, or else you'd end up going the wrong direction, or you'd end up crashing. So again, the theme for day 3 was NASCAR. And if you didn't know before, now you know now, NASCAR drivers have a spotter. And their spotter is probably one of the most important jobs to their car. In the car, the visibility is pretty much limited to a little tiny rearview mirror that they can barely see out of because they have a helmet on, and the little tiny windows around them. Other than that, they don't have any mirrors that go outside of their car, so you can't really see if there's another car right next to you or not. So the spotter, their job is really important. They have to tell you there's a car on your right, there's a car on your left, there's a car this many seconds behind you. One of the questions, we played a video, or 2 of them. In one of the videos, one of the questions was, have you ever driven 200 miles per hour blind? I don't know about you, that I haven't personally done that. It sounds like it should be on my bucket list, I don't know. I'll let you know ahead of time so you're not on the road with me when I do that.
KG, or Kung Fu, I just got to say, apparently, according to the kids on the church van, when your mom used to drive, I think she does. Just saying. She's pretty wild.
Well, anyway. So, in this scenario, the race that we're racing is like a track. We're going around it, we're in our car, and we have a spotter. Depending on who that is, it's God. It doesn't change. We can either listen to God as our spotter, and he can tell us where to go, and we can get through it, or we don't. And I would recommend listening to him because, as Isaiah 55:9 says, as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. So, I mean, that means God knows a few things more than I do. God is our spotter, and we have to listen to him. He will lead us through all the crashes and the cautions in life that we have to go through. But if we choose to drive blind, we'll end up paying the price. In the video, when Red Hot was talking, she said that God was the perfect spotter. But what exactly does that mean? Well, a perfect spotter in NASCAR is a few different things. First of all, they're consistent. They have to be able to accurately give you directions. They can't be going, oh, there's a car on your left. I mean, on your right. I mean, it's behind you. Or that's not going to end very well for anyone. So God is consistent and he never changes. As Hebrews 13:8 says, Jesus Christ is the same as yesterday, today, and forever. That means he's never changing ever. He has never changed his ways, and he will never change his ways in the future. The next thing a perfect spotter has to be is they need to calm you down when you need to be calmed down. If you've ever watched NASCAR, some of those racers can get a tad heated at times. If you've ever seen them get into a fight before, you'd know what I'm talking about. The spotter needs to be able to calm down their driver, or else they're going to end up driving a lot worse than they already did, and they're going to get into a crash or probably worse. God is the same way for that. God calms us down when we need to be calmed down. He's slow to anger, and as Matthew 6:26 through 27 says, look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in their barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they are? Can one of you add a single hour to your life worrying? What that's saying is none of us can add any more years to our life by worrying. And I think actually that's quite the opposite, that worrying can put a lot of stress on your body. I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard somewhere where people can get heart attacks from worrying so much. Worry isn't healthy, and we aren't meant to worry. God tells us that we need to pray about everything instead of worrying. So that's another thing he calms us down about. When we're worrying and when we're stressed, he can calm us down. When we're angry, he can calm us down. We need to stay focused on him and not take our sights off of him, or else, again, we're going to crash. And the next thing a perfect spotter is, they pump you up when you need to be pumped up. I don't know about everyone else, but sometimes you just don't feel like it coming to church. You just kind of just want to stay home. You just figure, I have a nice comfy bed. I don't want to get out. I'd rather snuggle up with a book and with a cat. And I do that sometimes. But we need a pick-me-up, and that's God. God helps us, and he's like, no, you need to go to church, because we might be worrying about something while we're at home we didn't even know we were worrying about. When we get to church, we feel so much better. I've done that. I've been worried about something, or I've been stressed about something, and I don't want to go to church. As soon as I get here, after the first few minutes, I'm like, oh, I'm not worrying about this anymore. It's just such a nice feeling. And same for NASCAR drivers. They sometimes they just don't feel like racing. They do it all the time, and I would get tired of doing the same thing all the time. Why I'm not a NASCAR driver. Their spotter needs to pump them up and get them excited for the race so that they can try to do their best and they can get fired up, as Jeff says. You need to get fired up. Yep. Next thing I would like to talk about is that first spotter, God is not going to be the only voice in your head, sadly. God is not the only voice. In fact, he's not going to be the strongest voice in your head either. The actual strongest voice that's going to be in your head is Satan. Satan is the loudest and the strongest, and he's quite deafening. Why we tend to listen to him is because human nature is so wicked and evil. We're all capable of unspeakable evil that we just give in so easily to doing evil. But we need to listen to God and know there's a little whisper, but he's still there and he never leaves, even though we think he might leave and we think we can't hear him. There's a little whisper. We just need to open up our ears. Deuteronomy 31:6 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you, and he will never leave you or forsake you." So Deuteronomy 31:6 is telling us that God will never leave us, and he's always there with us. Sometimes I would imagine in the car, the spotter's voice is a little quiet compared to the deafening roar of the car engine. But they still need to be listening to them, because if they get into a crash, there's smoke everywhere you can't see. They need to guide you through that, or else you're going to end up a part of that crash, and you're going to lose your spot in their race. And if you're competitive, that would kind of suck. So the voices in your head, they like to twist and contort the Word of God's. So not only are they going to completely shut out God's voice in your ear, they're going to twist it and contort it. We can see when Satan was tempting Jesus in the wilderness, or not in the wilderness. Was it the wilderness? Okay. And anyway, when Satan was tempting Jesus, he used Bible verses against him. He used the own word of him against him so he could twist it. And Satan does the same thing to us. We're not any different when we get tempted. We need to be able to figure out and identify between it. That's why it's so important to read the Bible and spend time in His Word. Because if you don't read it, how are you going to know what it actually says? And so God's not going to be the loudest voice, but rather Satan. He is going to do everything in his power, and I mean everything, with his army of demons to get you to stop listening. Because once he does, he wins. He wins once we stop listening. He can get us go wherever he wants to. And that, my friend, is a dark spot in life. That is not where you want to be. And we bring this all around back to Job. Job had some pretty corrupt friends. If you read the book, Job's friends were kind of not great. I wouldn't want to have friends like that. Job had many voices in his head. His friends who thought he sinned and deserved the wrath of God. His wife who told him to curse God and die. What a woman, am I right? And the temptations of Satan. All of those things, and Job still remained steadfast in Jesus and listened to him and never once cursed God. And that's the perfect example of what we should be striving for, is whenever we see issues like this, we need to listen to our spotter, know that he has us, know that he has us on the right track, know that he's going to guide us around the crashes and lead us through the cautions, and just trust him and lean on him completely. That's what Job did, and he was perfectly fine. We're not any different from Job, and we have to deal with the same types of temptations and trials. We might not ever go through it as strong as Job had, where we have sores all over our bodies, our friends are telling us to curse God, our wife is quite the issue. We're in ashes. All our cattle and children are dead. We're not probably going to go through all that. I really hope none of us do, because that would suck quite a bit. But we're going to go through the same. We're going to go through the same types of things, and we have to be ready to listen to God. And with that, that's everything I have to say.
Well, if nothing else, we learned we don't want a wife like Job. I mean, that would be quite the issue, I'm telling you. Give them another hand. They did a great job. It is not easy for them to get up here and do this at all. So I definitely give them kudos for when they get up here and do it, because I know it's not easy, and no one ever tells me no. I don't think anyone ever tells me no, so I give them credit for that, and I really appreciate that. But as we wrap this up today, I want to bring a few more verses to your head and ask you a couple questions. And as always, we're going to have an altar call. Doesn't matter if it's a youth service or an adult service, whatever you want to call it, but because it all boils back around to Jesus Christ. I mean, we've all got to get to that point. And when I spoke after our main speaker on Wednesday, I talked about the fact 14:6, John 14:6 says this: Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes unto the Father but by Him. That is the only way that we're going to get there. And I said, if we don't have that, then we're not going to have a firm foundation. That's what Gravy spoke about, having that firm foundation. If you watched on that video, Colton's team, it had Jaden, and I can't remember who all was on there. they struggled getting their firm foundation. They struggled getting that set. And without all of that, they just couldn't go any higher. And so without Jesus Christ in your life, you cannot have a firm foundation. You can mess around with all sorts of other things, but if you don't accept Jesus Christ first, you have no firm foundation. If you don't have Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, you will not have Him to lift your heavy burdens. You will be looking for all the other things of the world to help you get through those things, to numb the pain and to take care of all those things. You have to have Jesus in your life to be able to know that you have someone that is there to spot you. As we talked about on the final night that KG talked about, or that Kung Fu talked about, is knowing what voice is in your head. What voice are you listening to? That's why everything we did that night, they were blindfolded, because they had to listen to those voices that were in their head, because if they didn't, they could not see anything. They couldn't see how to drive that lawnmower around the cones out there. They couldn't see how to shoot the targets out there. They had to listen to the voice that was in their head. And then, like he said, this was quite chaotic in here. They were crashing into everything trying to go around here because they had all those other voices trying to tell them where they should and shouldn't go. So without Jesus Christ, you can't have any of those things that we talked about all week long. So I got a couple questions is this, and Dirk, when I'm done, you're going to have to stand and you're going to answer them. And so just getting you a heads up on that, okay? So the first question is this: what are you living for? I think each and every one of us need to, he's actually writing it down so you don't forget. What are you living for? I think that's a big question that each and every one of us should ask ourselves. What are we living for? What are we living for in this life? Are we living for the likes on social media? Are we living for the money that goes on out there in the world? Are we living for, prosperity? Well, prosperity would be money. Just in general, what are we living for? And the second question is this: who is Jesus Christ to you? Who is Jesus to you? Is he just someone that you occasionally go to every once in a while? Are you one of those that I call, and if you're one of these, I apologize, but I'd tell you to your face if you ask me, but are you a crisis Christian? Is that what Jesus is to you? Are you one of those that you only come to Jesus when you're in a crisis? And as soon as things start going good again, Jesus is back here again because he doesn't really mean that much to you. You just want him around when you're going through things. You know, who is Jesus Christ to you? So those would be two questions. I wish I could say that I had came up with them all on my own, but Matt Branch those were the first two questions he asked the kids that night is, what are you living for? And who is Jesus to you? So that would be my question to you guys. What are you living for? And who is Jesus to you? Luke 6:46 through 49. I'm just going to read it off there so I don't have to find it. You did pull that up, did you? Or you got that? Okay. Who do you call me Lord? Or why do you call me Lord, Lord, and don't do the things I say? I will show you what someone is like who comes to me and hears my words and acts on them. He is like a man building a house who dug deep and laid the foundation on the rock. And when the flood came, the rivers crashed against that house and couldn't shake it because it was well built. But the one who hears and does not act is like a man who built a house on the ground without a foundation. The river crashed against it, and immediately it collapsed, and the destruction of that house was great. So I would ask you, this kind of goes along with what she said, the three little pigs. When that big bad wolf comes huffing and puffing, is your house going to stand? Is the house that you're building right now, is it going to stand against all the things that's going to come? Because I promise you, things are coming. As Kung Fu said, the devil is going to come at you, and he's going to come at you loud, and he's going to come at you strong. So how is your house built? How are you building your house? And that's all going to determine on basically those two questions. What are you living for, and who is Jesus Christ to you? That's going to depend on what your house is built and how deep your foundation is. And that's going to depend when all the cares of this world and all the rain and all the things that come after you, because we're all going to face them. Every one of us are going to face issues. Every one of us are going to deal with struggles and temptations and trials. We're all going to have them. But what are we founded on? What are we built on? We're going to have special prayer before we leave here today. I'm going to stand in for one of my teenagers right now that's in the hospital, and she's just having a tough time, really having a tough time. But I've seen that young lady grow a ton in the past 6 months. And right now she's struggling with, why me? Why am I the one that's having to go through all this? Because right now, life sucks. It does. It does for her. She's hurting. She's depressed. She's sad. Why me? Why am I the one going through all this? And honestly, I wish she wasn't going through that at 15 years old. But she is. So thankfully, she's got a foundation built on Jesus. And I pray that her foundation is built strong enough that she's going to be able to withstand this right now. Because she's still got a road ahead of her. But all of us are going to have those why me moments at some time in our life. Psalms 55:22 says this, cast your burden on the Lord and he will sustain you. He will never allow the righteous to be shaken. Cast your burden on the Lord and he will sustain you. Job had to figure that out. Red Hot spoke those 3 nights and did an amazing job. She tied everything back to the story of Job, to the account of Job. She tied all 3 nights back to that and did a great job at it. But Job had to realize that his burden had to be on the Lord. It could not be on that awesome wife he had. And it couldn't be on those great friends that he had. It had to be on God. John 8:47 says this, the one who is from God listens to God's words. That is why you don't listen, because you are not from God. The Bible's clear. Those who listens to God or listens to the word of God they know God. That's why you don't listen, because you're not from God. And Isaiah 30:21 says this, and whenever you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear this command behind you. This is the way, walk in it. And I think Steve said they had a song to play. If you guys want to go ahead and come up, that's fine. But it says, whenever you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear this command behind you. This is the way, walk in it. So I'm not going to make Dirk, I know Dirk would stand and say, I'm not going to make him stand and say, what are you living for? Or who is Jesus Christ to you? But I think every one of you out there should ask yourselves that question. What am I living for? Am I only living for fame and fortune? Am I only living for people to like me? And am I only living so that I can live out my dreams through my children's sporting adventures or whatever it may be? Why am I living? And who is Jesus Christ to you? Is Jesus only there when you need something? Or is Jesus that foundation that goes on in your life? Matt Branch said, as you could tell, he was a big man. And he had offers from over 20 D1 schools when he went. And he chose the wrong kind of tiger. He went to LSU instead of Missouri. That's probably why Missouri's not any good, because he said they didn't even offer to him. But anyways, that's beside the point. He said, I had it all the physical abilities. I had all that stuff God had given me. But he said, once I lost my leg, once I lost that, I realized that nothing was going to go well until I laid it all at the foot of the cross. Until I laid everything down at the foot of the cross, that's when I figured out that's how things were going to get better. And we asked the kids that night, we had made a jersey the night before, one night that week. And so they all had that jersey when we came in here that night. And I asked how many of them, I said, how many of you are willing to get up and leave your jersey at the foot of the cross? And you can look later if you want to. There was probably 90% of them came up and they laid their jersey at the foot of the cross. Are you willing to go all in? Are you willing to have Jesus carry all of your burdens? So as they play this song today, ask yourself, what are you living for? And who is Jesus to you? And if Jesus isn't your foundation, and if Jesus isn't the center of your life, and you haven't made up your mind that you're going all in, as one of those songs they said, I ain't going back again. If you haven't set your mind that you're not going back to the life before Christ, then here's your opportunity. You may look and go, what's this all about? This is what we do on a Wednesday night now. We call it the fire. And every Wednesday night, we give the opportunity for kids to come up and pray around the fire. And that's based off Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When they looked in there and they said, didn't we put 3 guys in there? Like, yeah. Like, man, there's a fourth one in there. We want them to know that God will be in that fire with them. We will be in that fire with you. We will go through that with you. As one of the kids up here said, I think it was maybe KG said, you know, if we don't know you're struggling, we can't always be there for you. We can't always see it if it's going on the inside. So as you ask yourself those questions, they play this song. Find your way that you can still get around to one of the altars you want to. Find your way up here to one of these chairs, one of these benches, and let us be in the fire with you. And make that decision today. What are you living for, and who is Jesus Christ to you?